So here we are beside the Water of Leith in Craiglockhart Dell, and I wanted to tell you where the name Craiglockhart came from. Back in about the 1100s, the hills which are up behind you, east of Craiglockhart and west of Craiglockhart Hills, were called the Crags or the Craggies of Gorgon. But they came into the ownership of the Lockharts of Lee over in Lanarkshire. At the beginning of the 1300s, Simon Lockhart of Lee was fighting with Robert the Bruce in the Wars of Independence, trying to drive the English from Scotland. And he was rewarded for his loyalty and his valour by being knighted. He became Sir Simon Lockhart of Lee. Robert the Bruce died in 1329, never having had the opportunity to go on pilgrimage to the Holy Land. And he had always vowed that he would do that as atonement for his sin of killing John Comyn on the altar of Greyfriars Chapel in Dumfries. Therefore, he asked his trusted friend Sir James Douglas, when he was on his deathbed, if after his death James Douglas would cut out his heart and take it and bury it in the Holy Land. That's what happened. James Douglas cut out the heart, put it in a locked silver casket, gathered together other knights to go on a crusade. Sir Simon Lockhart of Lee was one of those knights, and he carried the key to the casket. However, they were waylaid in Spain. They started to fight with the King of Spain, trying to drive the Moors out of Spain. And at the Battle of Tebba in August of 1330, the Scots were led into an ambush by the Moors. At one point, Sir James Douglas saw that Sir William St Clair of Roslin was surrounded, rode in to fight with him, and both of them were killed along with several of their comrades. After the battle, the survivors gathered together the bodies of their comrades and also retrieved the silver casket that held Robert the Bruce's heart. Rather than carry on to the Holy Land now with their depleted numbers, they returned to Scotland, and it's believed they buried Robert the Bruce's heart in Melrose Abbey. And returning from that adventure, Sir Simon's name was changed from Lockhart to Lockhart, because he was the one who had carried the key to the casket. And after that, all these lands became known as Craiglockhart. But not only did he gain a change of name, he also gained a valuable jewel. He had taken a prisoner at the Battle of Tebba, a Moorish emir, and in those days, if you had wealthy prisoners, you could ransom them. The emir's mother came to plead with Sir Simon for his release, offering great quantities of gold and silver. But during the negotiations, she dropped a small semi-precious stone to the ground, and so quick was she to pick it up that Sir Simon suspected this small stone might be worth more than all the gold and silver she was offering. He therefore said that he would give up his prisoner in return for the stone. She was reluctant at first, but at last she admitted that it was indeed a valuable stone, for it was a healing stone. Any water in which that stone was dipped and swirled would cure fevers, ague, plagues in cattle, even the bite of a mad dog. So Sir Simon returned to Scotland with the stone. Small, red and triangular in shape, and it was later set into a Edward I silver shilling, and it became known as the Lee penny. And for hundreds of years after that, it was regularly used to cure both humans and animals, cattle and horses particularly. Even into the 1600s, there was a plague of cattle around Haddington. People from Haddington went to Lanarkshire to ask the Sir Simon of those days if they could borrow the Lee penny, but he wouldn't let it out of his sight. Rather, he treated some water with it put the water into flagons, and the flagons were taken to Haddington, and there indeed the cattle got better. And that, mind you, was after the Reformation. By then, Protestants ran Scotland, and healing talismans such as this were seen as Catholic and devilish nonsense. But it was so well respected, so believed in, that it was still used. Now, the last time I've heard of it being used was in the 1920s, when the Sir Simon Lockhart of those days had a shooting party. They stopped for lunch and found no one had brought a bottle opener to open their beer. So one of his guests took out his knife to lever the tops off the bottles, but his knife slipped, gashing his wrist. They bandaged the wrist up. But even that evening, he still felt faint and blood was oozing from the bandage. So he asked to see a doctor. Now, doctors cost money then, before the days of the National Health, and Sir Simon thought, well, why not use the Lee penny? So he got it from its safe, where it was still kept, dipped it in water, swirled it around, and then put the water onto the wrist. And in the morning, all that showed of that wound was a small, dry scar.